Hey there, welcome to episode 36 of the Quaggling Sand audio program. I am your host, Dan Hugo. We are recording this in the early evening, 4:40 p.m. to be precise, on 17 July 2024. July is fleeting by. Today we're going to touch on some of the old days when it comes to hot summer nights. It turns out Las Vegas has had a very hot July. I think it started right at the end of June. Traditionally, the highest temperature in the greater Vegas or southern Nevada area does make an appearance somewhere right in the middle of July. And so not totally unexpected, but it did come on early. So high temperatures were rolling in end of June, early July, and they were rolling in hot. I think we hit an all-time record temperature of, I believe it was 118. I think it was measured at the airport, as usual. I happen to live, what am I thinking here? Something like 20 or 25 miles north of the, not McCarran, no, the Harry S. Reid International Airport, LAS, if you're a traveler. So I think I'm 25 miles north. I am not too far south of Mount Charleston, where people go skiing in the winter. So probably a little bit cooler where we are. I'm nowhere near the altitude of Mount Charleston or the lodge or some of the other stuff that's up the hill, so to speak. But I do live in a place that tends to be a little bit cooler. So I have not felt the full brunt of the 118 or the other very hot days. It's been warm. It has felt in the 105, 110 range. I think where I've lived, it's been hitting maybe around about 5 degrees cooler-ish than the stated airport temperature, give or take. I did live in Phoenix for their all-time high temperature. I've talked about it before. I'll touch on it again. But in the meantime, I would like to tell you about Midnight Movies. That is the title of today's episode. Hopefully wherever you found your episode, this one, and where you find your audio programs in general, you are able to see the show description. There are the show notes within. I only have one non-self-promotion link in the link section. The show notes typically contain a host. That's me. If there were a guest, I've never really planned on having guests on the show, but you never know. And the summary, since this is mostly what you can see most hosting platforms and so on, they don't really do a wonderful job of displaying formatted text and so on. So I do my best. You get what you get. So today's episode, Midnight Movies, let us hit that summary. So at long last, our oasis in the desert, that is Las Vegas, is hitting some real high temperatures. Not that fake stuff. It was always a topic of lament. Oh no, it's getting hot again. And you're like, you live in a desert. And the weather gets like this every year. But memory. Bullhead City and of course Death Valley are still up at the top. By the way, Death Valley, 134 degrees Fahrenheit. I believe it was 1913. It was a while ago, but it has been very warm there also. I think one person died of probably heat stroke. I think they were there specifically to experience the hot temperatures, and so you don't have to do that. Bullhead City on the border between Arizona and Laughlin on the Vegas side, also typically the hottest place in Arizona. Typically. And Laughlin, I've been there a couple times. I didn't really get a sense that it was, I didn't go there in the summer to experience the heat. I would go to Death Valley. So I can't really speak to that directly, but yeah, Phoenix has been very hot. Las Vegas, not so much. So 118 degree all-time high. I'm totally off the script here now. So they're still at the top, but anyone who has spent the summer in Phoenix knows how it goes. So what did we do back in the day when the morning low temperature, and this always makes me kind of laugh and cry. when the low temperature was 95 degrees Fahrenheit. And I think there were probably times when it was 100 or thereabouts. So yeah, these are the kinds of days where and by the way, the low temperature for the day will be the moment before sunrise, the moment before the sun's rays begin to strike anywhere near where you are taking your temperature measurement. So it is the point in time when the maximum amount of heat has radiated away from the surface and anything holding on to heat. So the ambient temperature can be at its lowest before the sun begins to reheat it. So when the sun is about to rise in Phoenix and it's already 95, 100 degrees, that's a good summer. The links in today's episode, as always, shameless self-promotion at buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo, DANHUGO, and Ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/DanHugo. Everything I do is powered by coffee and money. You don't need to do anything about that. I use these sites as an outside of my purview of responsibility way of providing updates and links and so on. The most recent update probably was about Hugo Floss, and that I kind of migrated it from Anchor when Spotify purchased Anchor. Anchor was a nice podcast publishing platform, so of course they got acquired. The process of doing that was sort of annoying, so I was putting it off since I had already done it with this program, Quaggling Sand, and with FFS Talk. So Hugo Floss was the final hanger on. So I migrated that over, and that is the first step in bringing it back to life. So we'll see if we do that. So the link is on buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo, and I think I said something like possibly making a comeback or something. So there's a link to the Spotify for Podcasters profile page, so you can find all of the original episodes, as is the case with Quaggling Sand and FFS Talk. So the old episodes that are pre-numbering scheme. So this is episode 36, but there were episodes prior to episode 0 for Quaggling Sand, for example. So check it out. And on buymeacoffee.com, I also have my favorite coffees, beans that I usually buy, and I have some links to GitHub repos, repositories, organizations really. So check that stuff out if you're curious, and look for more updates on Ko-fi.com. I have tons and tons and tons of stuff to do, and in case you haven't heard, it's been super hot in Vegas. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. So you are under no obligation, though, to spend any money, but I do use these as, I call it out of band. Like, they're not websites or tools that I need to deal with. I can add some information to my profile. The editor is not great, but there's nothing I can do about that. So it is what it is. I don't have to maintain a website or a tool or deal with quality assurance issues or things like this. So it does what I need for the moment. The actual link for today's episode, in the link section, National Weather Service for Phoenix, extreme temperature table. In case you were curious, the high temperature on June 26th, 1990, 122 degrees Fahrenheit. The high temperature in Yuma, the highest ever, 124. I did not look up Bullhead City. I just remember that Bullhead City was always ridiculous. So there you go. But I mean, Death Valley, I believe Death Valley is like globally record setting. And I've been to Dubai, and I've been to some other very hot places, but apparently Death Valley, aptly named. So those are the links. By the way, in case you're curious, Quaggling Sand, the name of this show, the name of this audio program, a program that is essentially about stories, tales, reflections, and so on, maybe with some sort of a meaningful conclusion, with a hat tip to Aesop, of course. But yeah, they're not really allegorical or anything. They're not even fables, but just random stories that we are who we are because of where we've been, perhaps. So, Quaggling Sand, though, the origin of that name, if you have ever sat on your foot, fell asleep on your arm, things like this, and your limb is numb, and then as circulation returns, there are very sharp pins and needles type feelings. That's usually what you'll hear people say. I have pins and needles. But when I was very young, I coined the phrase quaggling sand. And you're thinking about it right now, and you're thinking, yeah, I can see that. So there you go, quaggling sand. It's as though the circulation is returning, maybe to your head. Who knows? On with the show. Some old highlights. I've mentioned some of these things previously. While I was born in New Jersey, we moved to the Phoenix area when I was just about to turn 6 years old. I recall it being somewhere in April that we moved to the area, because I know that I attended school, Horizon Elementary School, for 1 month and then summer. So it had to be somewhere like end of April. So we moved to Phoenix. So I left New Jersey after having experienced a few summers. I wouldn't count the one in which I was born, but I did experience the humid summers of New Jersey, and I was in for a rude awakening with the first summer in the greater Phoenix area. I didn't look up temperatures for that summer, but so that would be the summer of 77. Good times. It was very hot. And then the monsoon would come in, and I think the monsoons have felt worse over the years. So the monsoon, and we will have our monsoon in Vegas as well. It's not nearly as potent as the Las Vegas monsoons, but I'm sorry, the Las Vegas monsoons are not nearly as potent as the Phoenix monsoons, in my experience. But it still gets a little bit humid. We get some nice lightning shows. So there you go. I have mentioned that when we would partake in outdoor activities, because there was nothing to do, I'll touch on that. We had a large orange, or if you're from New Jersey, orange, cooler that was full of ice and water. The brand that we had was GOTT, G-O-T-T. If you've ever seen a utility truck, especially the phone company, driving along, or maybe stopped to do some work under a street, or at an electrical box or a phone box, or climbing a utility pole, whatever they're doing, there will sometimes be a pretty big, probably on the order of 5 gallons or however many liters that is, but a pretty good big giant jug of water. And it usually has a little white on it, so orange usually, so easily seen, a little tiny white push button nozzle that allows water to come out. Sometimes it feels like it's just trickling out, like, give me that water. But that's what I'm talking about. So we had one of those, called it the GOTT, and it would go outside. And I remember my dad telling us now and then to do whatever we want, but this had to be empty by the end of the day. So in other words, hydrate. Not a bad idea. And I've also mentioned my first programming job. That was the summer of 1990. I mentioned that high temperature. My workplace, it was my first programming job. So I was in an office of computers, not where nobody was making any Big Macs or quarter pounders or dropping some French fries anywhere. So actual office full of computers, had to be kept at a balmy 70 degrees or so, 70, 68 probably. And it was officially 122 outside somewhere. I've likened it to opening a blast furnace, going outside. Because if you're inside and it's 70 and it's outside, and say it's 120, that's 50 degrees. That's a 50 degree difference. And on the fence to this day, and I've described this before, when I went home for lunch, driving my air-conditioned free Volkswagen Bug, went home for lunch, short drive, like 5 miles away, got back. So now I've not only been outside in the heat, but I've been driving with hot air blowing on me to try to cool off. So I'm evaporating all of the sweat off of myself. I'm just remembering what an adventure. So, and if you had the quarter windows in the front doors, you could flip those around, have some air blowing on you. So very hot. I think I was wearing like a long sleeve button down shirt, and I would put my left arm out the window so the air would blow up my sleeve and into my shirt. So making do, and then opening the door to go into the office, like walking into a freezer and shivering. So I'm not exactly sure which direction was worse, but those are some of the highlights that I've already talked about these things. So getting a little drink there. So what about day to day? And that's the crux of today's episode. In general, there was no social media. There were only 3 television channels, networks. plus independent, plus PBS. So yeah, we had CBS, NBC, ABC. We had KPHO, I think it was, which was our independent Channel 5. We had PBS on Channel 8, I think it was. So okay, we had 5, and then later we would have 6 when Fox rolled out. Not a lot of sitting at home flipping through channels of modernity. We never did get cable at our house in the Phoenix area. We had cable in the early days in New Jersey, and it was mostly HBO centric, but not even HBO is on cable anymore, so who cares, right? But yeah, we never did get cable because it was more like, we got better things to do than sit around and watch TV all day, and that is correct. So going outside to experience something unusual, I've mentioned maybe going to the library or going to the mall, going anywhere to just move around with air conditioning. And when you only had a bicycle and some pedestrian capabilities, going anywhere autonomously was a little bit of a challenge. So pretty much limited to a mile or two range, even on a bicycle. Like you don't want to be cruising around on a bicycle when it's 110, 115, 120 degrees out. Forget about the 122. That's a technicality. 118 was not an uncommon temperature for summers back then. I don't really see it. I don't really see those types of high temperatures. When I moved back to Phoenix, we moved in what they were calling a cool spell, and it was barely getting to 100 in, I want to say it was like late June, I think. So my roommate from college, and then in the Bay Area when we were working in Silicon Valley and so on. So he helped me. So I had a 24-foot budget truck full of all of my worldly possessions. So he was in the passenger seat. We drove down. So 13, no, was it? I think it was more like 15 or 18 hours because you can't drive like the wind when you're in a giant truck like that. And you're not a completely amateur driver. You're not a professional driver of these big vehicles. Although I will say, if you're driving a U-Haul, I think commercial drivers, aka truckers, kind of give you the stink eye a little bit. But driving a kind of a nondescript budget, so it doesn't have a big giant picture of weirdness on the side, just a kind of a nondescript gray truck. The truckers they can't really prejudge. So as long as you are polite and follow some of the rules, they help you out. They let you in to merge and so on. So very nice. Anyway, so Kevin drove down with me. We get there, we unload the truck into my new rented place, and I've talked about that previously as well. And he said, "Oh, it's not that hot here. I thought it would be worse." And my mom said, "Well, we're having a cool spell." And the day that we were flying back, because I had not totally 100% moved out of the Bay Area, but this was the bulk move of the possessions. The day we were leaving, we were having lunch with a fellow graduate from our college who lived in Chandler, probably still does. So it makes me laugh now because Kevin was like, "Oh, it's not so bad." It was, according to the outdoor temperature reading in his car, this third person's car, it was 118 degrees outside. 118, and it had been 95, 98 the day or two before. So that was kind of a shocker for Kevin, and kind of a return to normal. Anyway, so I don't know that it's getting that hot that easily in the Phoenix area anymore, but I didn't look at this summer since I was so overwhelmed and distracted by our all-time record highs here in Vegas. But yeah, so I didn't really have much to do when I was younger, and couldn't sit around watch TV all day. You could try. I mean, that was the fail-safe. But if you wanted to do anything, you basically had to go outside. Once I got to high school, mostly through my Air Force Junior ROTC affiliations, I had friends with cars. This would especially be true in my sophomore year of high school. Freshman year, a little bit, but sophomore year, I knew more people because I met people that were juniors, so they were just getting cars, or maybe they were, maybe I didn't know them that well, but I knew them better my sophomore year. So I had more friends with cars during my sophomore year, and so when the summer came, like, "Hey, do you want to go to Denny's?" or "Hey, do you want to go to so-and-so's house?" or whatever. So we could watch movies at their house, or we could do, what could we do? I'm trying to remember, because eventually I will get to the midnight movie part. But there wasn't a lot to do. I would get a job at McDonald's, which is next. So there was a lot of late night eating though, because again, Denny's open all night. There would be a 24-hour McDonald's, I think, somewhere, and a 24-hour. I think a friend of ours worked at Dunkin' Donuts, so it was really just more of a, So what do you want to do? Because we're outside and it's among the coolest hours of the entire day of the entire summer. So try to just do something. Can't go to school, obviously. In our high school, it didn't really have great air conditioning. I think it has been remodeled since. Later on, I would get a job at McDonald's. I think I got the job it was towards the end of my sophomore year. I was not yet 16, so I was still 15. You could get your learner's permit at 15 and 7 months, which I probably did right around then. But I did not have a car. I mean, I didn't have my license yet. So I figured, I'll get a job. A bunch of us from the same school and then other people in our age group were working at the McDonald's in the mall. It was a pretty good deal. So got a job at McDonald's. I've talked about that previously as well. There was enough of a mixture of people with cars, without cars, legally driving vehicles and not, so that there was always something to do. And so through the summer that I worked there, a couple times we went to drive-in movies. A couple times we went to a park that it wasn't midnight, but it was definitely after close. And because we worked in a mall, the mall would close at like 9 p.m. So you're out of work by 10. You can go to a park. And I'm not going to say this happened a lot, but I do seem to remember going to a park and having a barbecue, and it was a lot of Big Macs. I don't know how that happened. I remember the people that organized that they had been at McDonald's for a while. So once you do your 40 hours and you're just tired, and by the way, I was making $3.50. I topped out at $3.85 per hour. So keeping those Big Macs cheap. We were hanging out with the coworkers again, and then we'd go to drive-in movies, and sometimes we would go to actual movies, but that was a little bit less common with my McDonald's friends. But we did, when we discovered the midnight movies, begin to take on the midnight movies. So somewhere in the greater Phoenix area, there would be, and at multiple places, but there would be a movie that you would love to see, but it was playing late, and it was playing, maybe it started at midnight, maybe it started at 11:30. I don't really remember the details. I do know that I've checked today. I checked today, and there are no longer any midnight movies by name or implication in Phoenix, in the Phoenix area, that I could find. Most movie theaters, you're pretty much done by midnight. So you are leaving. You're not getting there for a midnight show. There could be special occasions, special events, and so on, but I did not see anything nearly so regular as we had access to. So it's slightly cooler at midnight, of course, as I've been describing. And I don't know if you know this, but since the 50s or something, when movies, the picture show was a thing. Part of the reason they became popular, or one of their marketing devices, was that movie theaters could have air conditioning, and then they could advertise that they have air conditioning, and you could go in and watch a movie because they have air conditioning. And so people used to do that. And so you could go, and of course we had the mall. So you can go to the mall during the day if you had nothing to do, or if you, in the summer. And if you, for example, I would go to the mall before my shift at McDonald's would start. So I could walk around the mall for an hour. If I worked in the midday, I could get off in the evening and walk around the mall a little bit before I entered into the day heat. Hopefully I would get the evening heat and get on with the rest of the evening and night. It's tough to do when you're 16, 17. Not a lot of venues are open, but midnight movies, family friendly. You pretty much see any movie. Nobody's really going to card you for an R-rated movie. You look fine. You're 17, something, sure. So we could go see movies, which we did very frequently, Friday and Saturday probably. There may have been other movies. It's hard to find the historical references, but sometimes they would sponsor, somebody would sponsor one. There were rock radio stations, KDKB, KUPD. So there'd be a midnight movies brought to you by, wherever Dave Pratt was hanging out, throwing red cards at people. So there was all kinds of opportunity to basically, movies at midnight, they may tend to be a little bit more ruckus, but arguably still family-friendly entertainment, right? So if you were stuck in your house, or maybe your air conditioner is broken, so you could say like, hey, does everybody want to go see a movie? And why not? And so we used to run into all kinds of people. Like, you could run into people you knew. Obviously, we knew each other, so 3 or 4 or 5, 6 of us would go see a midnight movie. Usually it was about 3 of us. It was me and 2 of my ROTC friends. No, it was not like a military brigade of movie watching, but we knew each other. So we'd go see movies, and then afterwards pretty much go home, because now it's 1, 2 in the morning. It's still hot, but occasionally we would go to like a Denny's or something afterwards, hang out. It was really mostly about maintaining a certain level of human interaction, but trying to avoid the 115, 118, 120 degree weather outside. And I don't remember how many times we went to a drive-in movie. Now, drive-in movies don't suffer the pain of air conditioning. So you're pretty much sitting outside in the same heat you're trying to avoid, but still somewhat fun, but not something I think we did too often in the really hot part of the summer. But definitely, drive-in movies late at night, good times, as opposed to drive-in movies during the day, which are not as good. I think there's a drive-in movie theater in Vegas. I don't have a car, so I really can't go check it out. I wonder if I could get an Uber, or more likely a Lyft, and we can go watch a movie. So the reason I'm talking about this, for two reasons. One, a little reflection on the old days. It was fun. We used to watch movies all the time. It's hard to recall a movie, like a commonplace pop culture movie, that we did not see. I did a FFS Talk episode on reaction videos, and I mentioned that it's interesting to watch reaction videos today. I have yet to see someone who has watched a reaction video for a movie that I didn't see, but in the late 80s and 90s. In other words, I don't see people doing reaction videos so often, occasionally, but to Furiosa, or anybody that does reactions to current stuff seems to be angry, frustrated, annoyed, disappointed, sad. But when you watch reaction videos I just saw somebody, I've never seen Apocalypse Now. Oh, that was crazy. So she did a good job. I think it was very interesting. I've seen Apocalypse Now a few times. I did not see that in a theater, but she and other people. I think there are about 5 or 6 channels that if they post something interesting, it'd be kind of fun. And in the example I did give, and this is a movie that came out much later, but reviews of The Sixth Sense, or reactions to, those are worth seeing. I won't spoil anything, but it's all about the same, and it's very effective, and it's too bad M. Night Shyamalan did not do better. But point of this is we would go see movies, or what we would do is we would go get movie tickets, and then there was one movie theater on the ring, the street that encircled the Metro Center Mall, and I worked at Metro Center in the McDonald's. So Metro Center had at least 2 movie theaters outside and 1 inside in the mall. I think it was 2 outside. It might have been 3, but it was at least 2. So there was one of them had a pizza place next door to the movie theater, so we might go get some pizza, some crappy pizza, play some video games, go see a movie. So pretty wholesome fun. Those don't happen anymore. In my experience, from what I can see, going to movie theaters is already something that may be a problem in some cases. The movie theater business took something of a hit during the pandemic, and home theater technology has advanced quite a bit. And I will say, I do agree completely that the movie-going experience is very different. Going to see a movie in a theater is an entirely different experience. We used to, when we were in college, we would go see movies in Westwood, where they had the real, 70 millimeter Dolby or other THX, the good sound systems, the big screens, really solid presentations. And we would go see, the big blockbusters coming out. I saw someone had posted a photo of the 80s throwback, and they had a marquee, and the movies were like Terminator. This is not going to be completely accurate because I'm not checking, but it was like Terminator, RoboCop, Predator, and you're like, these are all pop culture trophies nowadays. So you could go see a movie midnight. Could be any number of popular cool movies today, back then, but those days seem to have been gone. They've gone the way of personal movie viewing on your phone or your tablet or your laptop or your computer at home or your smart TV or however you consume mass quantities. And that's probably a minus because of the quality of the experience. You do get to watch your own movie at the time you want. You can pause it, go to the bathroom, get your own popcorn or soda or whatever you want. So it's a trade-off, but it takes away something. Now, I will say, when you are sitting in a movie theater, you are not being sociable, usually. Everybody happens to be looking in the same direction in a dark room. But immediately following the movie, rather than resorting to social media comments, commenting on a live stream about how much you loved or hated a movie, you would actually have a conversation, walking out to the car, getting in the car, going off, maybe going to Denny's, and you're, oh, I can't believe that. And then you couldn't even see him, and then the guy with the big giant gun, and then they're shooting everything, and he's the blood, it's on the leaves, and all that. Right, Predator. So you could see a movie, and then you'd have that after discussion. So you had this sort of commonality. I remember to this day, it wasn't a midnight movie, but I remember going to school, having seen, I think it was Airplane, and whatever age it was at my elementary school. Yeah, I did. I went there, and there was a circle of my peers in my age group. They were all, did you see Airplane last night? I don't remember. Maybe it was on TV or something. I don't know. But whatever the case was, we all had that common experience. And it has been said that binge watching has destroyed the common, waiting for the next episode and everybody having something to talk about after the episode. So that's probably true. But the other thing, and I should say, I searched for in Phoenix. They don't seem to have midnight movies. I searched here in Vegas. No midnight movies. Just seems to be the way. It's the way it is. In fact, I didn't do as deep a dive in Phoenix, but it didn't look good. I think Harkins, which used to have the Harkins Cine Capri, which was the coolest one-screen theater in all of Arizona, probably, and maybe beyond. Harkins has a Moonlight Theater, but I believe it is in the fall. It's not during the summer. So it looks like movie theaters pretty much close or end the day or the evening at 11:30. So they don't seem to show over midnight, unless you do a special engagement, perhaps. And this is something to think about, people of Las Vegas. I have mentioned this in the context of the faux startup scene. I have said these words: hey, rather than every single thing anybody ever does or talks about or mentions or links to or plans for being about startups, why don't we do something like a movie night or go to the Springs Preserve and take a tour, like a group tour, so you get a group, still people and you can talk about your startup if you really want to, but people in the theater will be going, shh, and people at the Springs Preserve might be like, dude, you're talking to a cactus. So I think there is opportunity to return en masse to a movie theater to get out of the heat. Movie theaters are great. They're family friendly, even when it's around midnight. And again, like I said, if your air conditioner fails for some reason, or you didn't get to spend time it was too hot during the day, why don't you just shift your schedule a little bit on a weekend or whatever? Not everybody, but people can spend time enjoying some summer without frying eggs on a sidewalk, which I understand people here in Vegas did attempt to do. 118 degrees, the sidewalk would be much hotter. I did not pursue trying to see if that worked. Saw that for many years in Phoenix. It doesn't really work as you would think it would. You can try to cook food on your dashboard in your car. That goes a little bit better depending on what it is, but really what you should do is just find yourself some shade or go see a movie. But let's be honest, back in the day, back when we were enjoying our midnight movies and our visits to Denny's and walk around the mall, we had no cell phones. There was no doom scrolling. There was no social media silliness. No TikTok or Reels. Nobody was setting up a camera to dance in the mall to get attention and so on. None of that. There was none of that. When you were at Denny's, you were talking to each other, or you were observing, you were people watching, seeing what else was going on. But there was no, oh, hang on, I got to get this, or hey, I got to send to, oh, I better capture a picture of my food. There's none of that. In fact, I have to wonder if back then, if you said, "Hey, I want to get a picture of my food," they'd be like, "There's already pictures in the menu. Did you not see those?" That's how you ordered. So there was only interacting with humans, with your friends and family in real life, and running into people you don't even know when you go see the midnight movies. And that was also a thing. You'd have actual human interaction with other people because we're all here to see the same movie, and it's midnight or thereabouts. So I have to wonder, our hot summer and human interaction, let me start over. I have to wonder if midnight movies, as a metaphor for making a hot summer and human interaction possible, or lack thereof, like lack of human interaction, are yet another sign of things as they are, and they will continue to be. In other words, there are no midnight movies. We have no interaction. If we had midnight movies, would there be a little bit more peace in the world? Would there be more of the so-called unity? Maybe. But honestly, I really think it would have been cool if our local theater scene here, and by the way, Vegas does have several theaters. I think they're even still open. There are some luxury, or what is it? There was Regal theaters. I don't know if they made it. There's a couple of AMC theaters. There are some Cinemark, Century theaters. Many of them are either IMAX or there's another one, Dolby Vision. Is that right? I can't remember. It's been a while since I think the last movie I saw in a theater was Rogue One. Other than that, I really haven't taken the plunge. I'm tempted to go see Romulus, Alien Romulus, mid-August. But I think it would be interesting to see about sponsored movie nights, something to ponder here in Vegas for next summer. And if everything goes to plan for my startup that I'm working on, I would have a channel with which to reach people. So that might be interesting. Anyway, so I just want to reflect on the midnight movie scene and the impact that I think it had on human interaction, interpersonal relations in a time before social media, and a time when not everybody was wired up to see any video they wanted from anywhere, anytime, by themselves with their small display strapped to their head. And by the way, I just saw that one of the famous. There's tons of these '80s memes. So I was like, on the one hand, don't sit too close to your TV, and then the next picture is somebody with their Apple Vision Pro strapped to their head. So yeah, times have changed, but it would be interesting to know if there was more of a group social experience, as simple as watching a blockbuster movie in a theater at midnight when it's 100 plus degrees outside, what that might do. That might be a little experiment to conduct. So there you go. I have thought out loud, not as exciting. And certainly yesterday, I think my voice was doing better. Today, allergies aplenty. We do have another heat warning, so the joy is not over. And our monsoon season here will bring a different atmospheric composition. We do have some smoke, I think, coming in from somewhere, some fire somewhere. There will be particulates in the air from the wind and from the rain. The rain, of course, will bring some of the particulates down, but then it would kick back up again somehow. So yeah, I mean, it's always a challenge to see what I'm allergic to. But either way, well, thank you for listening, of course. I hope you will go see a midnight movie. And if we can have some sort of a cool midnight movie thing, like a planned event, a recurring event, I'll start thinking about this now for next summer. It could be cool. And don't forget, buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo and Ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/DanHugo. Keep track of the various projects I have going on. You are under no obligation to spend any money. And on that note, I'm going to go make a coffee. Cheers.